This is a summary of data center in Medius.Re. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at data center here in Medius.Re. In order to access data center, you first have to be logged in. So let's go ahead and log in. Now that we're logged in, you'll see over here on the left, you'll have data center available for you to select. So let's go ahead and select data center. The first thing you're going to see is over here on the sidebar, we need to go ahead and build our data structure. So let's go ahead and select the trial years that we're interested in, so 2020, and then the trial group that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and select snack chip trials. Now you can see all the trials down here available to me. I can select any number one of these trials. I can also filter by specific trial blocks. So if I only want to look at Michigan, I can filter by Michigan, and now I have this one trial left to select. So now I'll go ahead and select that so that that trial is available in my data set. Now I want to select which data fields I want to show up. So you've got your trial data fields, field data, process data, storage data, or whatever other data field groups would be available for the trial group that you selected. I want all of the field data fields, so I'm going to go ahead and click here and they will all be selected. Now if I wanted to limit it down by a specific variety that's available to me within that trial, I can go ahead and select anyone here, but if I just leave them blank, it will pull the whole entire trial in. Okay, now that I have all my data loaded, let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. So we've got our data fields that we requested here across the top, and then all of the data from the trial filled in with the rows. So as you can see, by default, we've got the title of the data fields up here at the top with their label. And then anytime you see a percentage, you're going to see it in its decimal representation. Let's say we want to change that. You just come up here to the cog icon, and you can change your percentage format to either be the decimal representation or a whole number. So if I change it to a whole number, you'll see that that 0.18 now became 18. If I'm interested in showing the data field name at the top instead of its title, I can change that as well. This might be useful if you're looking to export this data for use in SAS or in RStudio, or you're trying to do your own analysis through some other statistical software and you need data field names that don't have spaces. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back and I'm going to change that to title, and I like my decimal representation there. Okay, so what can I do with this data? Well, one thing you can do is you can download it. You could download it to Excel or download it to a CSV, and you'll get it exactly as you see it here, and then you can do something with it outside of Medius.Re. The other thing you can do is we can give data sets a name. So I could call this my 2020 Snack Michigan. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and save that data set so I could recall it later. So now that I've saved that data set, let's say I came back to here for the first time, I could come here to the folder icon, open that up, and find any of my previously saved data sets here. It's an easy way to recall data sets that you've used in the past if you need to just change a quick parameter or run another chart or download images from it really simply. So speaking of images, you can see over here if there are images associated with the data, I'm going to get them right there. Now how do I view these? Well, I could go ahead and click on that icon and I could see the images associated with that row if I wanted to. The other option that I would have is I could come up here to images, and this will show me all of the images that are associated with the data that I just pulled in and give you a nice thumbnail and then the variety that that image is associated with. And you also have the ability, if you click on one, to see the full screen version of it or the full size version of it. And you can also view the thumbnails over here on the side as well. And let's go ahead and go back to our data set right here within Data Center. So another thing I can do is I can build some charts. So I'm going to go ahead and build this chart. So I click on charts and I have my current data set here, 2020 Snack Michigan. and we're going to go ahead and pick the series. So let's make the series our the trial. So we want the whole trial to be included in one chart. Then our x-axis is going to be our variety. And let's graph out our total yield. So now we have a quick, here's a bar chart showing us our total yield for this entire trial. So I have the option here, if I wanted to, I could change this to a different chart type. So if line made sense to me, I could do that. But let's look at bar here for a moment. And if I go over to options, let's talk about some of the different things that we can do here within options. So let's say I wanted to use this chart for a presentation or to put it in a report, and I wanted a nice title. We'll give you a suggested title based on the name of your data set. But you can go ahead and just check that box to turn that title on, and it will add that title for you. But you could just here say, this is my fancy chart, and that becomes your title. The other thing we can do is we can set these data field targets. So a data field target is essentially saying, hey, I want to draw a line that indicates this is where my target would be. So if your target yield was 500 hundredweight per acre, turn your data field target on, hit 500, and now you get this line across the chart that gives you a quick indication of any of the varieties that exceeded that target that you were looking for. Another thing you can do is you can turn these data point labels on, so we can go ahead and say show. So now that we turned those on and you're saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's because you're looking at the series label. You can change the series label to be the point values, and then it will show you the actual value of the point that is displayed on that bar graph. And you have the ability to change your alignment or your font size. So let's say I wanted now to organize these by the ascending or descending. I can change that right here, and it'll give me a nice sorted version of the graph. Or I can go back to default. Now, what is default? The default sorting is how it was sorted back in my data set. So let's jump back here to data center, and I'm going to look at my data set. If I click here on variety, and that's going to sort all of these rows by this particular column variety, right? So now you see that those are in order. And if I go back to my chart, you'll notice that my order here changed according to how I had it sorted in my data center. So that's a handy way to be able to control how your data is visualized on these charts. Well, let's go ahead and clear out our chart and show you a different chart type, right? So here we are back to series. This time I'm going to select variety as my series. And this is an easy way to give a nice cross analysis between two different data points. And then I'm going to select specific gravity as my x-axis, and I'm going to look at yield total as my y-axis. Not really helpful right now as a bar chart type, right? So we're going to go ahead and select scatter, and now I've got a nice scatter plot here for me that is showing me where all of these map out. This is a good start, but I think we can make this a lot more useful for us. So again, if I go back to our chart options, right? And we talked about these data field targets before. I'm going to make sure that they're on, and I'm going to set my specific gravity target to 1080. And again, I want my yield total to be 500. So now what we can see is we can see that I've got these data points that are in each one of these quadrants. And if I click this little guy right here to center my targets, what that'll do is it'll put these target lines here in the middle so that you get an equal representation in each one of these four quadrants. Now, not necessarily helpful that the value here is 1096 and 534. So I can come back down here to my data point labels, and I can change those to be series labels. And now I see the variety name, which is the series that's associated with that data point. Now here you can have the ability to play around or tweak a little bit to make this represented well. If I wanted to move the x-axis over, let's say I just want to left align these guys on that point, and I'm going to move it down so that it's right with the data point, and I'm going to shift it over a little bit, and this maybe might help make it more readable for you. You have the ability to play with this and tweak it as you would want. Let's say you want these dots to be bigger, right? You can go ahead and make those dots bigger. Now you might be asking yourself, now that we made those bigger, something might have stood out to you. What are these stars instead of the dots? Like I see dots here, but then I see stars here. Anytime you see those stars or like an asterisk looking symbol, that's indicating that those are the varieties that were the check material in the trial. So it's an easy way to see how did your varieties perform compared to the check. It makes them easy to identify. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at seeing that easily this variety MSZ 242-13 was the variety that had the highest specific gravity and the greatest total yield. So it outperformed all of these other varieties. Let's say you're interested in knowing all of the breakdown of all the values. Toggling the chart results will show you a table here and show you each one of the data points and then what their values are, so it's easy for you to look at. Or if you're interested in including this chart in one of your presentations, you can come up here to Save Chart as PNG. Click on that, it will export that chart for you. And now you're looking at that PNG of that chart, and you can include this PNG in any presentation, whether it be PowerPoint or a Word document that you're creating, so you can use that to help. So that's a simple overview of what you can do with Data Center. If you have any more information, don't hesitate to reach out to us.